Words, Numbers, Lines borrows its title from an artist's book by Bilge Friedlaender from 1977. The exhibition here in Arter is showing the earlier work of Bilge Friedlaender that was never shown in Turkey. So what we are showing here is more of a base of the work that was shown in Turkey before. And so the reason we decided not only to stay with her methods and research that were in the 70s, but going into the early 80s to show a glance from her approaches that would change later on. Staging a posthumous exhibition required us finding strategies to reconnect with the artist and to understand her possible wishes for such an exhibition, such an important exhibition. We were very lucky to have Mira as one of the co-curators in this exhibition, who could not only be the person who knows the artist very well as her daughter, but also provided an access for us to the archive, to the archival material.
Bilge Friedlaender, my mother, came to the US in '58 after she had finished her studies in Turkey at Robert College and Mimar Sinan. So she came to do her advanced degree in painting, and it wasn't until the early 70s, really, that she came into her own as an artist. Later, she abandoned painting, and that period was the early 70s, just before the works, some of the works that we show here in our exhibition. So the period of mid-early 70s was very significant for her. It's a period where she leaves the canvases behind and begins to engage with paper and works on paper, and these very important concepts of the horizon and gravity, and really deeply mathematical, philosophical engagement with the material, but on a very spare level. Works in the exhibition, for instance, linear diagonal mutation, engage with these ideas of the mid-70s, minimalism and post-minimalist approaches. They're very material-centric, but it's especially important, we feel, as she's a woman in this period who actually had some success, but then quietly the rest of her career continued. So it's important for us not only to highlight these works because they're fantastic, but because they show her engagement with these very topical ideas of the period. Mm-hmm. And they really continue onward into today, into today's discourse. So the content of the work, if you allow it, it will come forward, and her engagement with materials is seen not only through cutting and string, but tearing lines, investigating lines in many, many ways. And this continues into the 80s and beyond the works that you see in our show to her production in the later 80s and 90s.
When we started our research, we faced a very large archive with a large amount of work. So it was our point to decide what to focus on. When we decided to focus on this archival material, we had to feel the reaffirmation from the artist. To be able to find that, we started digging the archival material that would allow us to understand this body of work better. So thanks to Mira's connection to the archive, we were able to go through the journals, the letters, significant amount of material that was written about the work, especially by the artist. This was our point when we decided to step back and let her speak about her work, which she very strongly did already.
Throughout her life, Bilge had profound experiences, physical experiences with the nature or just with perception. And these, as an artist, of course, but these particular experiences outside the studio really transformed her work and were part of these pivots that happened during her productive years. So in the early 70s, one that particularly stands out is experience in scuba diving on a wall dive called the Tongue of the Ocean, where she experiences spaceless space and this lack of gravity, lack of horizon, which gives a feeling of lack of self. So this is an idea that she endeavors to bring to her work, and I think you can see it in the torn paper works and also the white-on-white works, such as Through the White Light, where she's actually deeply engaging with nature, but in a very abstracted form, that we see. So she's taken it so far, her research goes so far, that we come with this purity of concept that's not representational at all, but deeply resonant. An important part of Bilge's practice was producing artist books, which began in the late 70s, and it was a very important space for her to work inside of and to expand. So she really saw the artist book as a space, and indeed referred to River House Book, our installation, as an expanded artist book. This was a very expandable category, and something to be explored deeply, as also another part of our humanity, you know, not just the creation of the line and the square, but we make books, and then we make artist books, and what is inside them and what comes out of them. So you'll see that in books such as Dots, where you can see many pages, and then the more sculptural approach, as in 9, the artist book, where the ability of a book to go inside itself and come out of itself connects very much with her explorations of duality. The works you see in this room, such as River House Book, give the viewer an introduction to Bilge's more direct engagement with nature that continued throughout her life. Even when Bilge is using a color such as pink or aqua blue, she's still referring to nature, even when she's using these pieces of telephone wire that you'll see if you look very closely. So each material, whether it's a found object or it's a raw material like sand or handmade paper, they're all incredibly important to Bilge's practice.
In the exhibition, we did not follow a true chronological order, although the grouping itself guided us into some sort of a chronological order. And in the exhibition, we brought these works together to represent the moment's concentration and research that she had at that time that she produced this work. The work in the exhibition, but also Bilge's work in general, requires more time and attention from the audience. Some of the works seem quite invisible almost. You might see in the first glance some white squares and black squares. Those works requires even more time from the audience to stand in front of them, look more carefully to the details, to be able to see what are the layers, what are the types of illusions that the artist created for us. This was part of her research to understand and play with the notion of perception.